I know we're a little pressed on time today than what we have been trying to do in the past, so I want to try and hit some key points for what you might want to consider and keep in mind when managing your diet and making sure you have adequate nutrition for your outdoor hogs. All animals are going to have requirements for protein, energy, minerals, vitamins, and of course, water. Water tends to be one that a lot of times people will forget about. The important thing here, I want to try to hit some high points, is that your stage of production, just like with any other livestock species, will vary on what your requirements are. General rule of thumb for hogs is as your animals get older, your requirements for all of these, well, except for water, all of the protein and energy are going to be dropping. So your young feeder pigs you're going to be starting with will have a higher requirement for protein and energy. Your boars and your older sows will drop off on those requirements. And reading and grazing, if they're in a true outdoor setting, can help meet some of those requirements as well as give them some enrichment. So really quickly, deficiencies, if you don't have enough energy for your growing pigs, you will reduce their growth rate. So that will take you longer to feed them out and reach your end weight, which will of course affect your bottom line with trying to keep your costs down and get your animals to market faster. If you don't have enough protein, not only will you have less lean muscle being produced, but it can also affect your fat to lean ratios and make your animals fatter. Vitamins and minerals both will have different impacts on your growth production, and vitamins especially can help keep your animals healthy, just like it can with us as well. If you give your animals too much nutrients, some of the same types of things, too much energy, just like with us, if the pigs have too much energy, they're going to increase their fat deposition, which if your end product is trying to have a lean cut of meat would be something you don't need to be doing. As well as protein, after they've reached the requirement for what they need for their maintenance and growth stages, extra can be converted to fat or actually excreted through urine. And so then you're literally wasting your money going down the drain, literally and figuratively in that situation, increasing your costs that wouldn't need to be increased. Minerals and vitamins, same thing, and vitamins as well as the protein, anything extra above what they need will just be excreted in their urine. So trying to make sure you're really balancing what they're needing with what you're feeding them to optimize your cost of production with them. Two different quick strategies for feeding pigs. You can feed them ad lib, so free choice, as much as they want. They continuously have access to feed in the pasture. It's great because it can help lower your labor costs, but it's going to be increasing your feed intake. So pigs are going to be able to eat anytime they're hungry. So you might have to have access to more feed. In a situation like this picture here where they're grazing, foraging on residual corn stubble field, that might be a nice thing to do because they can find the corn stalks to graze on, as well as any grain that might have been left in ears of corn. Restricted feeding you can use for some of your older animals that would have less requirements. So gestating sows that are going to have a lower requirement, as well as when you start to get to that final finishing stage, when you really want to try to hit whatever your goal is for your finished animals, your fat to lean ratio, putting them on a restricted diet can help you try to maintain that. So as I mentioned really quickly earlier, as our pigs get older, just for crude protein for this curve, our requirements start dropping. So if you just have one diet that you're feeding to all of your pigs, regardless of the age, at some point in time, you might be underfeeding them for what they need to be at optimal growth and performance. And at other times, you're going to be overfeeding and wasting your feed costs. So having phases of your diet, your young growing pigs having a higher quality diet, and as those pigs start aging, start dropping that down so that you have less of a feed cost and you're able to more accurately match what their requirements are. One of the really good things about being in California is that we have access to a lot of different alternative feedstuffs, and Alda mentioned that briefly towards the end of her presentation. Feed cost is going to be the most expensive part of a diet for any livestock. And for swine, it's estimated between 60 to 80% of your feed costs, overall production costs. So anything you can do to reduce that can help you in your profit margins, of course. Some of the different things that are going to be hidden costs. I've had a lot of people call and ask if they could feed different culls from some of the fruit canneries that are in my area. Nutritionally, when you look and see what those feed byproducts would have, some of them are very high in water, and so then you're paying a lot in transporting water from the point A to your farm, and not getting a very nutrient-dense product. Storage can also be an issue, and as Alda mentioned, storage is definitely something you want to keep in mind when you're trying to reduce how many pests you have. And some of the palatability of some of the byproducts may or may not be something your pigs would like. But some common things that are done very well, a lot of milling byproducts. Brewer's grain has been a very good cheap source of feed for hogs as well as for cattle, but lately we're starting to see competition from that. Some of the distillers here in California are starting to take that distiller's grain, the brewer's grain, and make it into granola bars. So people are finding different uses to reduce food waste in general, but pigs can still play an important part. A lot of bakeries might have day-old bread that they can't sell, or even from the grocery stores. That can make it an excellent feed for hogs, easy to store. Pigs also have a requirement for specific amino acids that sometimes are hard to meet that requirement on pastures alone. So a lot of times finding some milk byproducts, not that dry milk, can help you meet those amino acid requirements. And as Alda mentioned, meat and egg byproducts, you have to be careful and make sure that it is completely cooked and not raw. Vegetable coals, byproducts, beet, corn molasses can also be good energy sources. And the big thing here, the feed can affect your growth performance, as I quickly mentioned earlier, but also it can affect the palatability of the meat you are trying to grade. So keeping that in mind and maybe having a sample of a set of byproducts you're interested in that you can get access to make it be profitable and have on a regular basis, feeding one pig out and seeing how the end product tastes to you before you decide if that's the way you want to go. Definitely do not feed anything to pigs that would be moldy, slimy, or rotten. That would be a really good way of trying to get your animals sick. So definitely, if it starts to look moldy or slimy, don't feed it to them. It needs to be disposed of. As Alda mentioned earlier in her talk, any raw eggs and meat are not allowed. You would want to prevent that. Cook them if you can before you feed it to them pigs. High sodium or sugar foods can be an issue depending on the rest of their diet. And there are some different garden produce that you might need to cook. Potatoes and sweet potatoes, they need to be cooked before being fed to them. So making sure you know what it is you're feeding them. And of course, as always, it would be really beneficial if you don't know exactly what the nutrient content is of what you're feeding them, send a sample to a local lab and find out what the protein content is, what the energy value is, so you can create a balanced diet. And with hogs on pasture, making sure you know what is in your pasture and what toxic weeds might be out there that could be a concern, and wild mushrooms as well. So having pigs on pasture can be a really good way to cheapen up your feed budget. Forages can be incorporated as fresh, dried, or instilled. You can make silage with it and include it into the pig's diet. Mature pigs, since they have less nutrient requirements, do much better and can be more efficient in utilizing those forages than our younger animals. And again, depending on the stage of growth, anywhere between about 10% of your diet up to 50% of your diet could be coming from your pasture, which would really help reduce your food costs. So your growing pigs, your younger pigs are going to be in that lower end, and your mature sows, probably a dry sow, will be up to that 50%. And the more time you allow animals to adapt to the forages, provide them their traditional feed that they've been on while they adapt to using a pasture, the more efficient that they will be at being able to utilize pasture. Some of the different benefits, of course, is a lot of welfare. They can have a bulkier diet, improve their microorganisms in their gut to be more desirable. Increasing the fiber in their diet can help reduce some gastric ulcers. Flavor of the pork. Here you see a picture of some pigs that are in an oak woodland setting. There's foraging for acorns. A lot of people will pay a high dollar value for pork that has been finished on acorns. So improving the flavor, changing the flavor of your pork. Pasture can also help increase your unsaturated fatty acids. It can also increase the antioxidants. And because you've got more of a forage, you have less energy in your diet than if it was just a grain-based diet. And it can help with reducing excess fat deposition. So water is the other really big thing that people a lot of times will forget about. And water is going to be increasing as your animals increase. So if you have pregnant lactating sows, she's going to need the most amount of water, upwards, between 6 to 7 gallons per day per head. So making sure whatever you are at for your situation out on pasture, that you have access water to them. Making sure you have them at the correct height so that, depending on what stage of production it is, that it's at a height where they can easily access it. And pigs, if you are trying to be creative in how you're getting water out into your pastures, you also have to keep in mind something that they cannot turn over and create a mud hole from the water and create an issue. So having them on some sort of a cemented platform here, or even a trailer for it to be mobile, is beneficial for that. And to keep the water cool, it's suggested that try to insulate it, or with pigs, because they're going to be so curious, actually burying that pipe to be able to keep the water at a cool temperature for them, especially as we get into our hot California summers. So, and a good feed program really is a cornerstone of a successful pork operation. It can help keep your costs down. It can optimize the performance of your pigs. It can, your financial goals of the operation, and it can help you produce a consistent quality product that your customers will like. And we have a couple of resources I wanted to highlight, and these will all be linked also on our small acreage website that we are working on. We have created a few years ago a outdoor hog production that sort of goes over some of the best management practices for keeping your eye on your natural resources when you have pigs out on pasture. A lot of the things Aldo mentioned, some of the things I mentioned as well tonight, and a whole slew of other things. And then if you haven't found it, North Carolina has a very robust pasture pork program where they have a bunch of talks. Some of them are short, couple of minute talks, some of them are longer, on a whole variety of topics. And so if you have a lot of more information through them as well, we actually consulted with them. You can see their logos here on our website, on our publication. We consulted with them when we created this one because they really were the leading experts in outdoor hog production.